The millionaire saw a girl carrying bricks, and what she said brought him to his knees. The summer sun bore down on the city, unforgiving and relentless. From his penthouse office, Nathaniel Crown watched the workers below like ants, moving, hauling, sweating. His glass tower rose above them all, the symbol of everything he'd built with cold precision and ruthless ambition. He was the king of this concrete empire, untouched by the grime of the streets, until today. His assistant knocked once before entering. "Your car's ready, sir. The mayor is waiting at the foundation site." Nathaniel grabbed his blazer, buttoned it over his crisp white shirt, and stepped into the elevator. He hated public ceremonies, but the Crown Foundation insisted on this one. A community center project in the slums where he'd once lived, briefly, before everything went black in his childhood memories. He remembered a fire, sirens, a woman's voice, then adoption papers and silence. The black SUV glided through the city, tinted windows shielding him from the chaos. But when he stepped out near the construction site, chaos greeted him anyway, workers shouting, dust flying, a mess of bricks and scaffolding. Nathaniel's polished shoes touched the uneven ground reluctantly. That's when he saw her. A girl, maybe 9, maybe 10, carrying bricks in both hands, face streaked with sweat and dust. She was too young to be working, far too small for the load she bore. But it wasn't her struggle that struck Nathaniel. It was her eyes. She looked up, saw him, froze, and then she whispered something. He stepped closer, frowning. "What did you say?" She tilted her head, blinking at him. "Are you the man who left my mom before I was born?" Time stopped. Nathaniel staggered back as if punched in the gut. His knees buckled slightly, and he reached out for the scaffolding beside him. The girl hadn't shouted. She hadn't accused. She'd simply asked. And the calm, matter-of-fact tone in her voice was what cut deepest. He stared at her, his throat suddenly dry. What's your name?" She straightened her small frame, still holding the bricks. "Hope," she said. "Hope Langston. My mom's name is Emily." The name detonated in his chest. Emily Langston, his first love, the only woman who ever saw the boy behind the ambition, the one he'd left without goodbye after the fire, thinking she'd never survived. Hope turned, walking back toward the pile of bricks, leaving Nathaniel frozen in the dust. The mayor's voice called from behind. "Mr. Crown, are you coming?" But Nathaniel couldn't move, not yet, because somehow, in a forgotten corner of the city he tried to erase, a little girl just cracked open the past he'd buried, and he wasn't sure he was ready for what would come next. Nathaniel's hands trembled as he watched Hope disappear behind a stack of cement bags. He didn't hear the mayor's voice again, nor the bustling chatter of workers around him. All he could focus on was the dust-covered silhouette of the girl who looked too much like someone he had tried to forget. Emily Langston. That name hadn't crossed his lips in over a decade. It belonged to a chapter of his life that he had ripped out and burned. They were just kids, 17 and dreaming under broken ceilings. She had laughed at his arrogance, challenged his plans, made him feel real. Then came the fire, then came the foster care, and then came Crown Industries, a fortress he built to never feel powerless again. But if Hope was telling the truth, if she really was Emily's daughter, then Nathaniel's past hadn't stayed buried. It had grown roots. And those roots now had eyes, a voice and tiny hands carrying bricks on a job site funded by his own millions. "Sir," his assistant called from behind, "should I delay the ceremony?" Nathaniel turned, his voice unusually hoarse. "Yes, 15 minutes." He walked toward the makeshift supply tent where workers took breaks. His eyes scanned the faces, heart pounding. Then he saw her, Hope, sitting on an overturned bucket, drinking water from a plastic cup. Her small hands were raw, red, and blistered. He approached slowly. "Hope," he said gently, "can we talk?" She looked up, wary. "Why?" "I knew your mother, a long time ago." She stared at him. "She said you were rich now. She said you used to be kind, but then money made you forget." Nathaniel flinched. "Where is she?" he asked. Hope shrugged. "Working. always working. He sat on a wooden crate across from her, swallowing the rising storm in his chest. "And you never met your father?" She shook her head. "No. Mom said he got lost." "Lost?" Hope nodded solemnly. "Not like dead, just forgot who he was supposed to be." Her words struck him harder than any accusation. She wasn't angry. She wasn't begging. She was just stating facts as if the world had already taught her disappointment was normal. Nathaniel exhaled slowly. "What does your mom do?" "Cleans houses, sometimes offices. She said she wanted to be a teacher, but she had me instead." There was no bitterness in her voice, just a quiet acceptance that life had veered off course. Nathaniel's throat tightened. He looked at this little girl, half brick, half miracle, and felt something unravel inside him. A part of him, buried under wealth and steel towers, was waking up. "I'd like to see her," he said. Hope tilted her head again. "Why?" "Because I think I owe her everything." Hope stood, brushing the dust from her shorts. "Then you should come by after work. We live in the building behind the old church. But if you lie to her," she warned, narrowing her eyes, "I'll know." Nathaniel nodded slowly. He would go. And whatever truth waited behind that door, he wouldn't run this time. The SUV rumbled through the narrow streets of the old quarter as the sun began to set, casting long shadows between the crumbling buildings. Nathaniel sat in the back seat, silent, his hands clasped tightly in his lap. Each passing block brought him closer to a truth he'd long evaded, and to a version of himself he had buried under years of board meetings and mergers. Hope had given him the address with a child's bluntness, behind the church third-floor door with peeling blue paint, as if she had nothing to lose by trusting him. But Nathaniel felt the weight of what he might gain, or destroy, if he stepped through that door. The car stopped near the old stone church, now boarded up and tagged with graffiti. He stepped out, ignoring the curious stares from the locals. His tailored suit looked absurd here, like a museum exhibit out of place in a forgotten world. He climbed the rusted stairs, each creak a reminder that this place had survived things he couldn't imagine. At the third-floor landing, he found the door. The paint was indeed peeling blue. Faded numbers barely clung to the wood. 3B. Nathaniel raised his hand to knock, but hesitated. What if she hated him? What if she had moved on? What if hope was wrong? He knocked. Footsteps shuffled inside. A pause. The door opened slowly, and there she was. Emily. Older, yes, but unmistakably her. Her auburn hair was tied back, strands falling around her tired eyes. She wore a threadbare t-shirt and jeans, and her feet were bare on the hardwood floor. Her eyes met his, and for a moment neither of them spoke. Then her voice soft and stunned. "Nate?" He hadn't heard that name in years. He swallowed hard. "Hi, Em." Her hand clutched the doorframe, knuckles white. "What are you doing here?" I saw Hope. Today. On the job site." Her expression shifted, tightening, hardening. She looked over his shoulder as if half expecting this to be a cruel dream. "You're 10 years late." "I didn't know." "About her. About you. After the fire? I thought you..." "You thought I died?" she interrupted, voice trembling with disbelief. "You didn't check. You just vanished. I was 17, lost, and when they took me in, I didn't know how to find you." She stepped back, opening the door wider. "So you became a millionaire instead?" He stepped inside, guilt thick in his throat. The apartment was small but clean. Photos lined the walls, mostly of Hope. A school project hung on the fridge. The air smelled of detergent and something baking, warm, lived in. Nathaniel looked around, then back at Emily. "She's incredible." "She's everything," Emily said, her voice breaking just slightly. They stood in silence, the weight of a decade pressing down on them. "Why are you really here, Nate?" she asked at last. He met her eyes. "Because I think I found the only part of my life that ever meant something, and I'm afraid it's too late to fix it." Emily didn't answer right away. Her eyes scanned Nathaniel's face as if searching for sincerity beneath the years that had carved him into a stranger. She stepped toward the small kitchen and poured herself a glass of water, her hands trembling slightly. Nathaniel stood by the door, unsure if he was welcome or simply tolerated for now. "I used to imagine this," she said finally, voice low. "You showing up, saying something that made it all make sense. I used to dream about it when Hope was little and I couldn't afford diapers." Nathaniel swallowed hard. "I deserve that." She leaned against the counter. "I'm not trying to punish you, Nate. I just want to understand. Did you ever think about me, wonder what happened?" "I did," he said quietly, "but I buried it. After the fire, they told me no one made it out. I was shuffled into foster care so fast, I barely had time to grieve." Emily's lips parted. "No one made it out? I was in the hospital for 2 weeks. I kept asking about you, but no one ever came." Nathaniel sat on the edge of the couch, stunned. "They lied to both of us." She nodded slowly. "I guess we were just 2 broken kids caught in someone else's idea of a rescue." Silence fell again, heavy but less hostile. Outside the window, the city hummed, oblivious to the reunion decades overdue. Then a small voice called from the hallway, "Mom? Who was at the door?" Hope stepped into view, now wearing a clean dress and damp curls from a quick rinse. She froze when she saw Nathaniel, then looked up at her mother. "It's okay, sweetheart," Emily said gently. "This is someone Mommy used to know." Hope looked back at Nathaniel. "You came." He nodded, his voice almost a whisper. "I said I would." She sat beside him, her little legs dangling off the couch. "Did you tell her?" Nathaniel glanced at Emily. "Not everything." Hope turned to her mother. "He didn't know about me. He thought you didn't survive." Emily sighed, walking toward them. "It's more complicated than that, honey." "Everything is," Hope said with a strange wisdom no child should have. Emily sat opposite them, folding her hands in her lap. "So now what, Nate? You've built an empire. What do you want from this little apartment?" "I don't know yet," he admitted. "But when Hope looked at me today, I realized I couldn't go back to the life I had. Not without trying to be part of hers." Emily narrowed her eyes. "It's not that simple. She's not a charity project. She's not some hole in your soul you can patch up." "I know," he said quickly. "I just want to know her, and if you'll let me, I'd like to know you again too." Emily looked down, her eyes glistening. Hope glanced between them. "Can we have dinner? Together?" Nathaniel nodded, smiling through the ache in his chest. "I'd like that." But outside, a shadow moved past the window. Someone was watching. Dinner was quiet at first. The 3 of them sat around the small kitchen table, plates filled with macaroni and roasted vegetables. Nothing extravagant, but the smell was comforting. Nathaniel, still in his tailored shirt, though he had loosened the collar, looked out of place beside the modest dishes and chipped plates. Yet there was a strange peace in the air, like something lost was slowly finding its shape again. Hope talked the most. About school, her teacher, Mrs. Collins, how she wanted to be an architect and build safe homes that didn't burn down. Nathaniel listened intently, laughing when she did, nodding with genuine interest. He noticed how Emily watched him out of the corner of her eye, guarded but not cold. At one point, Hope excused herself to grab a drawing from her room. It's a treehouse with solar panels, leaving Emily and Nathaniel alone. "You're good with her," Emily said quietly. Nathaniel met her gaze. "She's extraordinary." "She had to be," Emily replied. "She never had a father. I couldn't let her think that made her less." "I want to help now," he said, voice low. "Not just financially. I want to show up, earn her trust, yours too." Emily leaned back, folding her arms. "What if you're just feeling guilty? What if this is a phase you'll walk away from when it gets hard?" "I've walked away too many times," he said. "I'm done running." Before she could respond, the door buzzer rang. They both froze. Emily stood. "No one comes this late." She walked to the intercom and pressed the button. "Yes?" Static crackled. Then a voice, gruff and low. You should tell him the truth before someone else does. Emily's face went pale. Nathaniel stood slowly. Who was that? She didn't answer. She pressed the intercom again. Who is this? No response. Nathaniel stepped closer. Emily, what's going on? She turned away, gripping the edge of the counter. He placed a hand gently on her shoulder. Tell me. Emily shook her head. It's nothing, probably a prank. People around here— Don't lie to me, he said more sharply than intended. She turned to face him, eyes fierce now. You don't get to demand the truth, Nathaniel, not when you've been gone for 10 years. Hope came back into the room holding her drawing. She stopped when she saw their faces. Did I do something wrong? She asked, voice small. Both adults turned to her. No, baby, Emily said quickly, forcing a smile. Not at all. Nathaniel crouched to her level. Your drawing is amazing. She beamed, but as she placed the paper on the table, Emily stepped into the hallway and locked the front door, her eyes darting toward the stairwell window. Nathaniel noticed. That voice. It meant something to you, didn't it? Emily didn't answer, but deep down, Nathaniel knew. Whatever happened between them in the past, they weren't the only ones who remembered it, and someone else wasn't done with the story. The next morning broke with a heaviness in the air. The city stirred outside, engines humming, vendors shouting, birds flitting between satellite dishes, but inside apartment 3B, silence pressed down like fog. Nathaniel had barely slept. He'd stayed on the couch listening to the old pipes creak, and Hope breathed softly in the next room. Emily had disappeared into her bedroom after locking every window and double-checking the door. She hadn't said another word about the mysterious voice from the intercom. Now sunlight filtered through the blinds, striping the floor with gold. Nathaniel stood in the kitchen, pouring coffee into a chipped mug. Emily emerged, hair pulled into a messy bun, wearing the same jeans from the night before. Her eyes met his, unreadable. Didn't think you'd still be here, she said. I said I wouldn't run. She nodded, walked past him to grab her own mug, then leaned against the sink. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then Nathaniel broke the silence. Who was that man last night? Emily's jaw tightened. I told you. No, he cut in gently. You deflected. There's a difference. She sighed, rubbing her forehead. You really want to do this now? I think we have to. She set the mug down. His name is Dennis Rourke. He was someone I knew years ago, after you were gone. Nathaniel's eyes narrowed. After the fire? She nodded. I was alone, pregnant, scared. He was older, said he'd help. At first he was kind, helped with groceries, fixed a leaky pipe. Then he got possessive, controlling, violent. Nathaniel's fists clenched. Did he hurt you? She looked away. Not in ways you could see. He exhaled sharply, rage simmering beneath his calm. Why would he show up now? Because he never really left. He always kept tabs. He just stopped bothering us after I got a restraining order 5 years ago. But that doesn't last forever. Hope doesn't know? No, she said quickly, and she can't. She just got used to sleeping through the night without jumping at every sound. Nathaniel stepped closer. Then let me help. I can hire security, move you somewhere safe. Emily turned to face him. And be what? Her savior? The man who swoops in 10 years late with money and guilt? He looked pained. That's not what I meant. I know, she said, softer now. But we don't live in your world, Nate. Out here we patch holes with duct tape. We survive by expecting the worst. A knock sounded at the door. Both froze. Nathaniel moved to the door cautiously and looked through the peephole. It wasn't Dennis. It was a woman, mid-30s, nervous, holding a small envelope in her hands. He opened the door slowly. Can I help you? He asked. She looked past him, eyes landing on Emily. I'm sorry to show up unannounced. My name is Sandra Rourke. Emily went pale. Nathaniel stiffened. Sandra looked down at the envelope. I think you need to see this. It's about hope. Emily's voice cracked through the tension. What do you mean it's about hope? Sandra hesitated on the threshold, her fingers clenching the envelope tightly. Her eyes darted between Emily and Nathaniel, filled with something between fear and guilt. "I shouldn't be here. I told myself I wouldn't come, but you deserve to know." Nathaniel gestured toward the couch. "Come in, please." Sandra stepped inside cautiously, as if the walls might collapse around her. She clutched the envelope like it was a confession, and in many ways it was. Emily remained standing, arms folded, protective and suspicious. Sandra sat at the edge of the couch, took a shaky breath and looked up. "Dennis Rourke was my brother. He passed away 2 weeks ago." Emily blinked. "He's dead?" Sandra nodded. "Car accident." "I wasn't going to say anything, but when we were cleaning out his apartment, I found this." She handed the envelope to Emily. "It has your name on it, and Hope's." Emily took it with trembling fingers. She opened it slowly, pulling out a folded sheet of paper and a photo. Her eyes scanned the words. Her expression shifted from confusion to horror. Nathaniel reached for the photo. It was old and faded, showing a newborn baby in a hospital bassinet, and beside it, Dennis, holding her. Emily dropped the letter. Nathaniel picked it up and read aloud, voice low and steady. "If you're reading this, I'm gone. And maybe that's for the best. I did things I shouldn't have. I told lies to hold on to something I never had. The baby. Hope. I told her mother she was mine. I forged records. I scared Emily into silence. I couldn't bear the idea of her loving someone else. I thought if I said it long enough, it would become true. But I always knew Hope wasn't mine." Nathaniel's breath caught. Emily sank into a chair, face pale, tears forming but not yet falling. "I tried to tell myself I was protecting her," Sandra said softly, "but it was control. Dennis was never stable. I think he knew it too in the end." Emily whispered, "He stole everything. My truth. My chance to tell her who her father was." Nathaniel turned to her, heart pounding. "You believed him?" She nodded slowly. "He had a birth certificate, a DNA test. I was barely holding it together. When he threatened to take her away if I questioned it, I gave in." Nathaniel sat beside her, gently taking her hand. "Emily, she's mine." Emily nodded again, this time with certainty. "She's always been yours." He leaned back, breathless, the truth crashing down like thunder and washing away a decade of doubts. Sandra stood. "I'm sorry for what my brother did. Truly. I didn't know until it was too late." Nathaniel looked up, overwhelmed. "Thank you for telling us." Sandra hesitated at the door. "You should tell Hope soon before someone else does." Then she left, the door clicking shut behind her. Emily turned to Nathaniel, voice barely audible. "She's yours, Nate." And now the question wasn't just whether he wanted to be in Hope's life. It was whether he was ready to be her father. The late afternoon light spilled through the window, casting long shadows across the floor as Emily and Nathaniel sat in silence. The envelope lay open between them, its contents like a live wire, shocking every second it remained exposed. Nathaniel couldn't take his eyes off the photo. That tiny baby. Her face so familiar now. He traced the edge of the picture with his thumb, as if it could somehow connect him to the years he had lost. Emily finally spoke, her voice hollow. "I let him do it. I let him say she wasn't yours because I was terrified. He said he'd take her, that no one would believe me. I didn't know how to fight him." Nathaniel looked up, his voice softer than it had been all day. "You don't have to explain. He was dangerous, and you did what you had to do to protect her." Her eyes shimmered. "But I lied to her. I let her grow up believing no one wanted her." Nathaniel leaned forward. "That's not true. She's strong and kind because of you. You gave her everything." Emily's eyes closed for a moment, the weight of the past pressing down. "She's smart. She's going to start asking questions." "She already is," Nathaniel said, recalling the way Hope had studied him the day before. "She knew something didn't add up. That's why she asked me if I left before she was born." Emily looked out the window, her voice trembling. "We have to tell her." He nodded. Tonight. Together. They sat like that for a while, two broken people holding the pieces of something precious between them. It wasn't just about truth anymore. It was about healing, about stitching together a future from the tatters of what was stolen. Then Hope's bedroom door creaked open. She stepped into the room, still in her play clothes, clutching a book to her chest. "Why are you both so quiet?" Emily stood slowly. "Come here, sweetheart." Hope crossed the room, sensing the gravity in her mother's voice. She climbed into her lap, eyes wide. "Did something happen?" Nathaniel sat beside them, taking a slow breath. "Hope, there's something important we need to talk to you about." She looked between them, alert and cautious. "Am I in trouble?" Emily shook her head quickly. "No, baby. You're not in trouble. We are." Hope tilted her head. "What do you mean?" Nathaniel reached out, gently taking her hand. "Do you remember when you asked if I left before you were born?" She nodded slowly. "I didn't leave because I didn't care. I left because I didn't know you existed. And then someone made sure I wouldn't find out." Hope looked confused. "Who?" Emily held her close. "A man I trusted made me believe things that weren't true. He told me someone else was your father, and I believed him because I was scared." Hope was quiet for a long moment, then softly, "So, you're my dad?" Nathaniel's heart stopped. "Yes," he said, voice catching. "I am." Hope blinked, then whispered, "That makes sense." Emily's breath caught. "It does?" Hope nodded, her lip trembling. "Because when I saw you yesterday, something felt right, like I knew you." She leaned into him, and Nathaniel wrapped his arms around her, overwhelmed. But even as they held onto that fragile moment of connection, a phone buzzed on the kitchen counter. Emily rose to check it. Her face went cold. Nathaniel stood. "What is it?" She turned the screen toward him. A photo had been sent from an unknown number. It was of Hope, taken through the apartment window. Emily's fingers trembled as she gripped the phone, her knuckles white, eyes locked on the image. Hope, sitting on the couch just minutes ago, captured in mid-laugh, framed through the apartment's third-floor window. The timestamp read, 3:47 p.m., less than 5 minutes ago. Nathaniel stepped forward, his voice low but urgent. "Lock the door. Now." Emily didn't hesitate. She snapped the deadbolt shut, then yanked the blinds down over every window in the living room. Nathaniel moved to Hope, who sat frozen, staring at the photo now displayed on the phone. He crouched in front of her. "Hope, sweetheart, listen to me. You're safe. But we need to stay inside for now, okay?" She nodded slowly, her voice barely audible. "Is it him? The man you were talking about?" Nathaniel looked at Emily. Emily answered gently, "He's gone, baby." "But someone else might be trying to scare us. Someone who knew him." Nathaniel's jaw clenched. "Or someone who doesn't like what he confessed." He turned toward Emily. "We can't stay here." "I know," she said, voice shaking, "but we don't have anywhere else." "You do now," Nathaniel replied. "You'll come with me. I'll get you to a hotel, something secure, private. You and Hope need protection until we figure out who sent this." Emily hesitated. "You think they're watching the building?" "I'd bet on it," he said, "and I'm not taking that risk." Hope stood, small but resolute. "Can we go now?" Nathaniel smiled at her, touched by her courage. "Yes. Let's pack a few things. Just essentials. We'll be back for the rest when it's safe." While Emily hurried to gather clothes and documents, Nathaniel kept watch at the window, peeking between the blinds. The street below looked normal. Cars passing, a man walking a dog, 2 teens on bikes. But somewhere behind one of those windows, someone had eyes on them. He dialed a number. A gruff voice answered. "Marcus, it's Nate. I need a secure car, unmarked, right now." Marcus didn't ask questions. 5 minutes. Nathaniel ended the call and turned to Hope. "Grab your backpack, kiddo, time for an adventure." 5 minutes later, a dark sedan pulled up in front of the building. Nathaniel and Emily hustled down the stairs, Hope between them, her small hand gripping her mother's tightly. Nathaniel opened the back door and ushered them inside before climbing in himself. As the car pulled away, he glanced back at the apartment building. A man stood at the corner, tall, grey hoodie, phone in hand. He didn't wave, he didn't move. But Nathaniel saw it, the glint of recognition. And as they turned the corner, the man slipped the phone into his pocket and walked away, disappearing into the crowd. Whoever was watching them wasn't finished. And the letter from Dennis might not have been the whole story. The hotel suite was perched high above the city, its windows offering a panoramic view of glittering skyscrapers and winding streets below. But inside, the atmosphere was tense. Hope sat curled up on the couch, a coloring book in her lap, headphones on but her eyes drifting toward her mother every few seconds. Emily paced near the kitchenette, arms crossed tightly across her chest. Nathaniel stood by the window, phone pressed to his ear. "Yes," he said into the receiver. "I want full background checks on anyone associated with Dennis Rourke over the past decade. Friends, co-workers, old landlords, everyone. And I want eyes on that building. Discreet but constant." He ended the call and turned to Emily. "You're safe here, for now." Emily stopped pacing. "For now. That's the part that scares me." Nathaniel walked to the couch, sitting beside Hope. He watched her color for a moment. Her strokes were careful, focused, but he could tell she was only pretending to be at ease. He placed a hand on her shoulder. "Hey, can I show you something?" She looked up and nodded. He reached into his coat and pulled out a small velvet box. Hope's eyes widened. He opened it slowly, revealing a delicate gold necklace with a tiny pendant shaped like a tree. "I bought this years ago," he said, voice soft. "It reminded me of the tree behind the house I grew up in, the one where your mom and I used to sit and talk for hours. I didn't know why I kept it all this time. I think maybe I was waiting for someone." Hope's lip trembled as he clasped the necklace around her neck. "It's beautiful," she whispered. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Just like your mum." Emily watched the exchange from the other side of the room, arms slowly lowering. She stepped forward, her voice quieter than before. "We have to tell the police about the photo, about everything Dennis did." Nathaniel nodded. "We will. But if there's someone else out there, someone who wanted Dennis to keep the lie alive, they may be watching us now." Emily sat across from him. "You think Hope's inheritance has anything to do with it?" Nathaniel blinked. "Inheritance?" Emily hesitated. Dennis had a life insurance policy. It wasn't much, but he named Hope the beneficiary. I didn't think it meant anything. "I haven't even filed the claim." Nathaniel's eyes narrowed. "Someone else might want that money or use it as an excuse to stay close. We need to see the policy." Emily nodded. "It's in the drawer back at the apartment, with all the legal papers." He stood. "I'll go get it." Emily's eyes widened. "No, don't go alone." "I won't," he assured her. "I'll take security. Be back in an hour." Hope looked up. "You promise?" Nathaniel leaned down and kissed the top of her head. "I promise." But as the door closed behind him and the elevator whisked him away, a silent figure stood in the alley across from the hotel, watching the exit. In his hand, he held a second photo of Hope, this one taken outside her school weeks ago. And beneath that photo, a birth certificate. But it didn't have Nathaniel's name. The elevator descended in tense silence, Nathaniel's reflection staring back at him in the mirrored walls. He barely recognized himself anymore, no longer just a powerful businessman, but a father caught in a decades-old web of lies. The fake birth certificate Emily mentioned was already spinning in his mind. How many layers of deception had Dennis buried beneath his manipulations? He stepped into the lobby and found Marcus waiting by the car, arms folded, eyes scanning the street. "You sure about this?" Marcus asked, opening the passenger door. "No," Nathaniel admitted. "But we need that insurance policy, and if there's a fake birth certificate involved, I want it." Marcus grunted. We'll be in and out." They drove in silence, tension thick. Nathaniel watched the city pass by, memories flooding his mind. Nights spent hungry in alleyways, his mother's laughter before the fire, Emily's smile on a summer night. Everything seemed so far away and painfully close all at once. As they pulled into the alley behind the apartment, Marcus checked his sidearm. "I'll sweep first." Nathaniel waited in the car, eyes darting to every window. Nothing seemed out of place, but that only made him more suspicious. A minute later, Marcus gave the all clear. Nathaniel stepped out and climbed the narrow stairwell, each creaking step echoing louder than it should. He unlocked the door and entered cautiously. The apartment felt hollow now, stripped of warmth, just four walls that remembered too much. He walked straight to the drawer Emily mentioned, pulling out folders and envelopes until he found the thick file labeled Insurance, Hope Langston. He opened it. Inside were papers confirming Dennis Rourke's life insurance policy. Hope was listed as the sole beneficiary. But the signature, Emily's, was off. He could tell. The ink was wrong. The date didn't match her story. Then he found it. A birth certificate. This one didn't list Dennis Rourke as the father. But it didn't name Nathaniel Crown either. Instead, the space for father's name had been typed over crudely. The name entered was Jonathan Ellison. Nathaniel's breath caught. He knew that name. Jonathan Ellison had once been Dennis Rourke's attorney. A man with a reputation for shady legal dealings and forged documents. If he was involved in Hope's records, this wasn't just emotional manipulation, it was fraud. He snapped a photo of the document, tucked the original into the file, and stood. That's when he heard it. A soft creak from the hallway. Nathaniel froze. Another creak, closer. He reached slowly for the kitchen drawer, pulling it open just enough to slip his hand around the handle of a heavy metal flashlight. The doorknob began to turn. He backed into the corner, raising the flashlight. The door opened, and there stood a teenager, maybe 16, hooded sweatshirt, eyes wide. They stared at each other for a long second. Then the boy spoke. "You're Hope's dad, right?" Nathaniel's grip tightened. "Who are you?" The boy stepped inside slowly, palms raised. "My name's Leo. I knew Dennis. I have something to tell you, before they find me." Nathaniel didn't lower the flashlight immediately. The boy, Leo, stood awkwardly in the doorway, one foot still planted in the hall like he might bolt at any second. His face was pale, cheeks streaked with grime, and a bruise darkened his jaw. This wasn't a bluff or some teenage prank. Something was very wrong. Nathaniel finally lowered the flashlight but kept it close. "Come in, slowly." Leo obeyed, stepping carefully into the apartment and glancing over his shoulder before Nathaniel shut the door. "I'm not here to hurt you," Leo said quickly. I didn't know where else to go." Nathaniel gestured to the couch. "Sit. Start talking." Leo sat, jittery, eyes scanning the room like he expected shadows to lunge from the corners. Dennis, he wasn't just lying about Hope. He was hiding things. From people. Dangerous people. Nathaniel crossed his arms. "Be more specific." Leo took a shaky breath. Dennis worked for this guy, Vin Barrett. Everyone in the neighborhood knew not to cross him. Drugs, fake papers, payoffs to police. He owned half the block. Dennis used to run documents for him. Birth certificates, green cards, stuff to make people disappear on paper. Nathaniel's mind spun. "And you?" "I was one of his runners," Leo admitted, shame flickering in his eyes. "Until I saw something I shouldn't have." "What?" Leo looked down. "A copy of Hope's birth record, the real one. I saw Dennis swap it with the fake. He gave the original to Barrett, for leverage," he said. Nathaniel's blood turned to ice. "You're telling me someone else has the original record?" Leo nodded. "And they're using it. Barrett knows you're back, he knows about Hope, and he's planning something. He wants leverage on you." "Why?" "Because you're rich," Leo said, "and Hope's existence is your weakness." Nathaniel sat down slowly, the room tilting slightly. Every instinct in him screamed to go back to the hotel, take Emily and Hope and disappear. But if Barrett had the original birth certificate, it wasn't just about money, it was about control. power. And Nathaniel had spent his whole life fighting not to be owned by anyone again. Leo leaned forward, eyes desperate. I didn't come here to scare you. I came because I used to know Hope. We went to school together. She was always kind. The only one who treated me like I mattered. I couldn't let them hurt her. Nathaniel stared at the boy. He saw it then, beneath the fear and dirt, honesty. Do you know where Barrett is now? He asked. Leo nodded. He's staying at the warehouse by the old rail yard. He moves around a lot, but that's his main place. Nathaniel stood. You'll take me there. Leo hesitated. It's dangerous. Nathaniel's eyes hardened. So is letting him come for my daughter. He grabbed the file and his coat. Some truths were buried in paperwork. Others had to be ripped from the hands of men like Vin Barrett, and Nathaniel Crown wasn't done fighting. The city shifted around them as Nathaniel and Leo made their way across town, the darkening sky casting long shadows over abandoned lots and crumbling warehouses. Nathaniel drove a black sedan, borrowed from his security detail, but tonight he was alone. No Marcus, no guards. Just Leo in the passenger seat, hunched low in his hoodie, glancing nervously at every passing car. Left here, Leo muttered, his voice barely above a whisper. You'll see a rusted gate. That's the entrance to the yard. Nathaniel followed the instruction, tires crunching over gravel. The warehouse loomed ahead, a skeletal structure wrapped in corrugated iron and broken windows. Faint light glowed from a corner office, casting an eerie halo through the dust. He parked beneath a canopy of shadows and turned to Leo. Stay here, lock the doors. If I'm not back in 20 minutes, call this number. He handed Leo a slip of paper with Marcus's direct line. Leo hesitated. You sure you want to go in there alone? Nathaniel's face was calm but resolute. I'm not walking away again. He stepped out into the darkness, boots crunching over debris. His breath clouded in the cooling night air. With every step toward the warehouse, his pulse pounded louder. The door to the office was slightly ajar. He pushed it open. Inside, Vin Barrett sat at a desk cluttered with papers, a cigar smoldering in a tray beside him. He looked up, amused but unsurprised. Well, Barrett said, a smirk curling his lips. The ghost of Crown passed. I wondered when you'd show. Nathaniel didn't waste time. You have something that belongs to me. Barrett leaned back, crossing one leg over the other. Do I? The original birth certificate, hand it over. Barrett chuckled. You think this is a negotiation? Nathaniel stepped forward. No, this is a warning. Barrett's expression darkened. You've got no idea what game you've walked into. Dennis was sloppy. He owed people. The documents were just the surface. The deeper you dig, the messier it gets. Nathaniel held his ground. Then start talking. Because if you so much as breathe in Hope's direction again, I will bury you in lawsuits, indictments, and financial ruin. I'm not 17 anymore, Vin. I don't scare easy. Barrett's smile faded. He pulled open a drawer and tossed a manila envelope onto the desk. It's all in there. Original certificate. Copies of fake IDs. Dennis's notes. But if you think this ends here... Nathaniel grabbed the envelope. It does. For you. He turned and left without another word. Back in the car, Leo jumped as Nathaniel climbed in, the envelope clutched in his hands. You got it? The boy asked. Nathaniel nodded. We're done here. But as they pulled away from the warehouse, headlights flicked on behind them, a black SUV. Leo looked back, eyes wide. They're following us. Nathaniel's grip tightened on the wheel. Then we lose them. And suddenly, the quiet streets turned into a chase through the heart of the city. One man trying to protect the truth, with shadows determined to bury it for good. The SUV behind them surged forward, headlights like twin daggers in the rearview mirror. Nathaniel's pulse raced as he turned sharply onto a narrow side street, tires screeching against the pavement. The sedan jerked, but he kept control, weaving through back alleys and half-abandoned blocks like a man possessed. Leo clutched the seat. You said they wouldn't follow you. I was wrong, Nathaniel growled, eyes scanning for an escape route. Hold on. He cut through a delivery lane, blew past a red light, and dove into a parking garage entrance. They barreled up 3 levels, concrete echoing around them. At the top floor, Nathaniel slammed the brakes and killed the headlights. The car skidded to a halt. They sat in darkness. The hum of city life was distant here, muffled by layers of concrete. For a few seconds, nothing moved. Then in the distance, the low rumble of tires. The SUV passed the entrance, continuing down the street. Nathaniel exhaled. Leo let out a shaky laugh. "You're insane, man." Nathaniel turned to him, dead serious. "No, I'm a father." They waited another 10 minutes to be sure the coast was clear. Then, under the cover of night, they exited the garage and took a winding, obscure route back toward the hotel. Nathaniel's thoughts churned. The envelope on the seat beside him burned like a secret that could finally destroy the chains Dennis had wrapped around all of them. Back in the suite, Emily stood at the window, arms wrapped around herself. Hope was asleep on the couch, clutching the small tree pendant against her chest. Emily turned when she heard the door. Nathaniel stepped in, envelope in hand, eyes locked on hers. "Tell me you got it," she whispered. He nodded, placing the envelope gently on the table. Emily opened it slowly, her hands shaking as she pulled out the original birth certificate. Her eyes welled as she read the clean, unaltered document. Father, Nathaniel Thomas Crown. She pressed her hand to her mouth, her breath caught in her throat. Nathaniel sat beside her. "It's over. No more lies, no more threats." Emily wiped her eyes, then looked at him. "And the others. Barrett." "He gave up the files, but someone else tailed us. I lost them, but it means this goes deeper. Maybe Dennis owed more than we thought." Emily's face hardened. "Then we need to go to the police." "We will," Nathaniel said. "But first, Hope needs to wake up tomorrow in peace. We'll give her that." They both turned to look at the little girl, sleeping soundly now, unaware of the war that had raged just to protect her truth. Emily leaned her head on Nathaniel's shoulder. "Thank you for not giving up." He kissed her temples softly. "I think I've been waiting my whole life to find something worth fighting for." The moment held, warm and quiet, like a breath of calm before the storm. Then Nathaniel's phone buzzed. A single message. "Unknown number. You have no idea who Dennis was working for, and you're not even close to the truth." Nathaniel stared at the message, his thumb hovering above the screen, as if touching it might detonate the truth hidden beneath the words. Emily leaned in, reading the message over his shoulder. Her breath caught. "More lies," she murmured. "Always more." He stood abruptly, crossing the room to the window. The city looked endless from here, glowing and indifferent. But Nathaniel's world had narrowed to a single point. The child asleep on the couch, and the woman who had held it all together for 10 years. He wasn't just chasing shadows anymore, he was standing in them. He turned back to Emily. "I'm going to find out who sent this. Whoever Dennis worked for, whatever they were protecting, it has something to do with Hope, and I need to know why." Emily approached slowly, placing a hand on his chest. "What if it's not about Hope? What if it's about you?" Nathaniel blinked. "What?" She looked up at him, something shifting in her eyes. "There's something I never told you. Not because I didn't want to, but because I didn't think it mattered anymore." He studied her face, heart pounding. "Tell me now." Emily sat down, voice unsteady. "Back when we were kids and before the fire, before everything, Dennis came around a lot. Not just after you left, even before. He watched us, followed us. I thought he was just another creep with nothing better to do." Nathaniel frowned. "What does that mean?" "I think someone was watching you, Nate. Even then. And when the fire happened and you disappeared into the system, maybe that was exactly what they wanted." Nathaniel sat slowly, her words sinking in. "Are you saying Dennis didn't just take advantage of the chaos, that he might have caused it?" Emily's eyes glistened. "I'm saying I don't believe in coincidences anymore." He rubbed his hands together, brain firing on too many cylinders. "Then we need to find someone who knew Dennis back then, before the forgeries, before Hope, someone who saw the whole picture." Emily nodded. "And we start with his lawyer, Jonathan Ellison." Nathaniel stood. "I'll find him. But before they could plan further, a loud knock startled them both. Nathaniel crossed to the door and peered through the peephole. A hotel staff member stood there with a small envelope in hand. Nathaniel opened the door. "This was left for you at the front desk, sir," the man said. "No return name." Nathaniel took the envelope. "Thank you." He shut the door and opened it carefully. Inside was a single photograph. It was taken from far away, through a zoom lens. In it, Nathaniel stood in front of the warehouse earlier that night. The caption on the back read, "Next time we won't just take pictures." He turned to Emily, jaw tight. "They're not watching us anymore." She stared at him. "They're hunting us." Morning light filtered through the hotel curtains, casting soft rays across the floor, but inside the suite, no one was sleeping. Hope was still curled on the couch, unaware of the storm that brewed around her, while Emily sat at the small table, clutching a steaming cup of coffee that had long gone cold. Nathaniel paced silently, the photo from the envelope clenched in his hand. "We can't stay here," he said for the third time. "They know where we are. They're sending messages now, not just threats." Emily nodded, her expression drawn. "We have to disappear. Go off-grid, somewhere no one knows us." He stopped pacing. "And that only delays it. Whoever's behind this, and they've been planning for years, they won't stop just because we change hotels." "Then what do we do?" she asked, standing. "What's the plan?" Nathaniel looked down at the photo again. The grainy image of him outside Barrett's warehouse stared back like a warning shot. Someone had eyes in every shadow, ears in every corner. "We need answers, and we need leverage." Emily crossed her arms. "You think Jonathan Ellison is the key?" "I do," he replied. "If Dennis was working for someone, if there was a bigger reason he kept Hope hidden, it would have passed through Ellison. That man's entire business is cleaning up messes." She hesitated. "You still have contacts in the city." "I never got rid of them," Nathaniel said. "I'll find Ellison." Emily moved to Hope's side, brushing a strand of hair from her daughter's face. "I'm going with you." He shook his head. "You're safer here with her." Emily met his eyes. "We're not safe anywhere, not anymore." There was silence between them, broken only by the muffled hum of morning traffic outside. Then a buzz came from Nathaniel's phone. A message. Unknown number again. This time a video file. He tapped it. The footage opened with security camera grain. An office. A man in a suit, Jonathan Ellison, standing at a desk. Then another man entered. Dennis, gaunt, angry, pacing. Their voices were muffled but clear enough. Dennis, "She's Crowns, you know it, that's why he can't ever find out." Ellison, "And the girl?" Dennis, "She's leverage, insurance." The file cut off abruptly. Emily gasped. He knew, all along. Nathaniel's eyes hardened. And Ellison helped him bury it. He grabbed his coat and the car keys. "We're going. Now." Emily glanced at Hope, torn. "She can't come." "I'll call Marcus," Nathaniel said. "He'll stay here with her." 20 minutes later, Marcus arrived, armed and sharp-eyed. "You really stirred a hornet's nest," he said as he entered. "Word is someone paid a private firm to track you down. High-end operatives, not just street thugs." Nathaniel handed him the video file. "We need to find out who hired them." "I'll dig," Marcus said, pocketing the phone. "You two just stay ahead of the storm." And with that, Nathaniel and Emily slipped out through the service exit, heading toward the man who had helped rewrite the past. Ellison lived in a gated estate on the edge of the city, discreet, fortified, expensive. As their car turned into the quiet, tree-lined road, Emily whispered, "Do you think he'll talk?" Nathaniel didn't take his eyes off the gate ahead. He'll talk. Because this time, Nathaniel wasn't here for negotiation. He was here for the truth. The iron gate to Jonathan Ellison's estate loomed ahead, framed by ivy-covered stone columns and security cameras that tracked every movement. Nathaniel drove slowly, deliberately, letting the black sedan roll up to the speaker box just outside the entrance. The intercom crackled to life as he pressed the button. State your name and purpose, a clipped voice demanded. Nathaniel leaned out the window. Nathaniel Crown. I'm here to see Jonathan. He'll want to talk. A pause. Then, Mr. Ellison doesn't take unannounced visitors. Nathaniel didn't miss a beat. Tell him I have the video of Dennis from the warehouse office. Another pause. Then the gate groaned open. Emily shifted uneasily in her seat. You think he'll come out himself? If he thinks he can still control the narrative, Nathaniel said grimly, he'll try. They drove through a winding driveway that curved past a manicured garden and an artificial koi pond. The house came into view, a modern mansion with glass walls, sharp lines, and the cold polish of wealth earned from secrets. Two men in suits waited by the front door, armed. Emily tensed, but Nathaniel placed a hand on hers briefly. Let me speak. Don't flinch. We're not prey. They stepped out, walking side by side as the guards opened the door without a word. Inside, the air was thick with silence and money. Marble floors, stark white walls. Her staircase that curled like a sculpture toward the second level. Jonathan Ellison stood in the middle of it all, drink in hand, as if this were a planned appointment. Nathaniel, he greeted smoothly. And Emily. It's been years. Emily stiffened at the sound of her name on his lips. You know why we're here, Nathaniel said, skipping formalities. I do, Ellison said with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. And I have to say, I'm surprised it took you this long. Nathaniel stepped closer, voice steel. You covered for Dennis Rourke. You doctored records. You buried my daughter's identity. Ellison shrugged. I provided legal services. That's what I do. Not when it's fraud, Emily snapped. Ellison sighed, walking toward a sleek bar cart. Dennis was a client, one of many. You think you're the only man in this city who's had something taken from him? I'm the one standing in your foyer, Nathaniel replied. And you're going to tell me who else was involved? Ellison poured himself a drink. Dennis was scared near the end. He was being pressured. Someone bigger than Barrett, a man named Callum Price. Nathaniel froze. Price, he's dead. He died in prison 5 years ago. Ellison smirked. Then you haven't been paying attention. Callum Price may be dead on paper, but his empire never stopped. And Dennis was laundering something for him, something linked to your name. Emily's eyes widened. Linked how? Ellison set his glass down. The birth certificate wasn't just about hiding Hope. It was about making her a placeholder for a trust fund. A very old one. One with your name attached, Nathaniel. And Callum wanted control over it. Nathaniel stared at him, stunned. Why me? Because, Ellison said, now deadly calm, you're not just some self-made billionaire, Crown. You're the last heir to the Price legacy. The words dropped like lead between them. Emily gasped. What are you talking about? Ellison stepped closer. You were adopted after the fire, but before that your real name wasn't Crown, it was Nathaniel Price. Nathaniel staggered back a step, his mind reeling. The lies weren't just about Hope. They were about him, and his entire life was a fiction written by men like Jonathan Ellison. The world shifted beneath Nathaniel's feet, reality bending as if gravity itself had changed. He stared at Ellison, the name echoing in his skull. Nathaniel Price. It didn't fit. It couldn't. He was Nathaniel Crown, abandoned child, survivor of a fire, self-made man. He'd built his empire from ashes. But now, standing in this glass palace of deceit, everything he believed about his origin was unraveling. Emily stepped forward, voice trembling. That's not possible. Nate was in the foster system. He had no family, no name. Ellison's smile turned almost pitying. That's what they told you, what they told him. Nathaniel's voice was barely audible. Prove it. Ellison moved slowly, as if this were a dance he'd rehearsed. He opened a hidden drawer in the cabinet beneath the bar and withdrew a slim black binder. From it he pulled a weathered document, an original birth certificate. He handed it to Nathaniel. Nathaniel's hands shook as he opened it. Name, Nathaniel James Price. Mother, Sylvia Price. Father, Callum V. Price. A cold wave swept through him. He could barely breathe. Emily stepped closer, reading over his shoulder. "Sylvia," she whispered, "that's the name you used to say in your sleep, when we were kids." Nathaniel's mind cracked open. Fragments tumbled back, whispers, a lullaby, the flash of jewelry on a trembling wrist. Sylvia, his mother. He hadn't made her up. She was real. Ellison poured himself another drink. "Your father, Callum Price, was a powerful man, dangerous. When he was arrested, the government moved fast. They stripped his name from records, seized assets, and scattered the remaining family to prevent retaliation. You were hidden in the system, rebranded as a crown, a ward of the state." Nathaniel turned slowly. "Why would Dennis have access to any of this?" "Because he worked for Price long before he became your ghost," Ellison said. "He was one of Callum's fixers. After the fire, he kept tabs on you, watched your rise. And when he learned about Hope, he saw opportunity." Emily stepped back, visibly shaken. "So all of this, Hope's false records, the threats, the tracking, was about keeping the legacy alive?" Ellison nodded. "Callum's empire was dismantled in public, but he hid his fortune in trusts, shell companies, accounts that required biological heirs to access. Hope, as your daughter, was a key." Nathaniel dropped into a chair, the document still in his hand. "So Dennis forged her documents to make her look like someone else's kid, so he could unlock that fortune himself?" "Yes," Ellison confirmed. "But it wasn't just about the money. It was about control. Price's enemies wanted to prevent you, or her, from ever stepping into that power. That's why the threat started again, because someone realized you were getting close to the truth." Emily turned to Nathaniel, eyes blazing. "We have to get out of here. We can't let them use Hope again." He nodded, standing with renewed clarity. "We're done playing defense." He turned to Ellison. "You're going to give us every name, every connection, every shell company, or I go public. With this," he held up the certificate, "and the video of Dennis." Ellison's smile faded. "You don't understand who you're threatening." Nathaniel leaned in, his voice ice. "I'm not threatening. I'm reclaiming what's mine." And suddenly he didn't just feel like a man fighting for his daughter. He felt like a man waking up to a crown he never knew he wore. The ride back to the hotel was a blur of headlights and silence. Emily sat stiffly, her hands clenched in her lap, her eyes staring out the window at the shifting skyline. Nathaniel held the birth certificate in one hand, his knuckles white. The weight of it wasn't just paper, it was blood, legacy, betrayal. He had come looking for answers about his daughter. He had found a hidden empire with his name on it. "I don't know who I am anymore," he said finally, voice raw. Emily turned to him, her voice steady. "You're Hope's father. You're the man who came back. That's who you are." He looked at her, something breaking open behind his eyes. "But I was lied to my whole life. What if I'm more like Callum than I ever knew?" "You're not," she said firmly. "You left all of that behind the second you chose to protect her." The words landed with unexpected force. He nodded slowly, turning his attention back to the road. "We need to prepare. Whoever's after us, they'll come harder now, especially if they know I've learned the truth." As they reached the hotel, Marcus was already waiting near the entrance, pacing with his phone in hand. He rushed over as soon as they exited the car. "We've got a problem," he said without preamble. "Two, actually." Nathaniel's body tensed. "Tell me." "First, the firm that was hired to track you, they're ex-intelligence. Black market mercs now, they don't work without serious cash behind them." "And the second?" Nathaniel asked. Marcus looked at Emily, then back at Nathaniel. "They've taken someone. Leo." Nathaniel's blood ran cold. "What?" "He went out for food, didn't return. I tracked his phone. It was dumped near the river 10 minutes ago." Emily gasped. "He tried to help us. He told us the truth." Nathaniel's jaw clenched. "They're trying to send a message." "No," Marcus said grimly. "This is leverage. They want something from you. He handed Nathaniel another phone, a burner that had been slipped under their suite door. There was one message on it. "We have the boy. You have the documents. Midnight. Alone. You know the place." Nathaniel stared at the screen. "They want me to hand over the Price inheritance. The proof. Everything." Emily gripped his arm. "They'll kill him even if you do." Marcus nodded. "This is a trap." Nathaniel's voice was iron. "Then we turn it into ours." He walked toward the suite, pulling out Ellison's files. "I want everything scanned, duplicated, stored on 5 different servers. If I don't come back, this goes to the press, the FBI, and every financial watchdog on the planet." Marcus smirked. "Now that sounds like the Nathaniel Crown I remember." Emily followed close. "We're coming with you." Nathaniel turned to her, eyes softening. "Not this time. If anything happens to me—" She cut him off. "Don't. Just don't." They stood in silence for a moment. Then she whispered, "Bring him back." Nathaniel nodded. "I will." But deep down, he knew. Midnight was more than a deadline. It was a reckoning. And when the clock struck 12, someone wasn't coming home. The warehouse district had gone quiet by the time Nathaniel arrived. Midnight hung over the city like a held breath, the moonlight casting a cold glow across rusted fences and broken pavement. He stepped out of the black sedan alone, his coat billowing slightly in the breeze, the manila envelope of documents clutched in his hand. He scanned the shadows. Every sound was louder in the silence, the soft buzz of a flickering street lamp, the creak of a distant chain-link fence. The meeting spot was a loading dock behind one of the older warehouses. Faded graffiti marked the walls. Broken glass glittered near the dumpster. Nathaniel stepped forward, pulse steady. A figure emerged from the shadows. Vin Barrett. "You're early," he said, smirking. "I'm not here to chat," Nathaniel replied. "Where's the boy?" Barrett gestured, and 2 more men stepped from behind a storage crate. Between them, Leo stood, hands bound, a bruise blooming across his cheek but otherwise unharmed. His eyes widened when he saw Nathaniel. "I brought what you wanted," Nathaniel said, holding up the envelope. Barrett stepped forward slowly, the edge of his boot crunching gravel. "You always were a sharp one, but this is bigger than you understand. That file isn't just proof of inheritance. It's a key to accounts, to names, to what's left of the Price network." Nathaniel didn't flinch. "And you think killing a teenager's the way to unlock it?" Barrett grinned. "No, but making sure the last true Price heir knows who holds the leash. That's priceless." Nathaniel took a slow step forward. "Let him go. I'll give you the file." Barrett considered. Then with a nod he signaled one of his men. They shoved Leo forward. He stumbled toward Nathaniel, who caught him with one hand, not taking his eyes off Barrett. "Now the file," Barrett said. Nathaniel held it up, then dropped it. The envelope hit the ground, and the moment Barrett's eyes flicked down, Nathaniel moved. With one swift motion, he shoved Leo behind him and pulled a small device from his pocket, pressing the trigger. A deafening flashbang erupted behind a dumpster as Marcus and a tactical team swarmed in, weapons drawn. "Drop it! Hands up!" Barrett's men panicked, one reaching for a gun before being tackled. Barrett himself froze, stunned by the speed of it all. Within seconds, the scene was secured. Barrett was face down on the pavement, cuffed. The files were retrieved. Leo clung to Nathaniel, still shaking, but alive. Marcus approached, breathless but grinning. "Told you we'd flip the trap." Nathaniel nodded, adrenaline slowly fading. "Get him out of here and make sure Barrett doesn't see daylight again." Marcus gestured to the officers to move Leo. Before leaving, Leo looked up at Nathaniel. "You didn't have to come." Nathaniel placed a hand on the boy's shoulder. "You risked your life for my daughter. That makes you family." Leo's eyes welled. He nodded and followed the officers. Nathaniel turned back to the chaos. In the distance, Barrett screamed, "You think this ends with me? You're just a name, Crown, a puppet in someone else's game." Nathaniel stared at him, silent. But his gut twisted, because Barrett wasn't lying. This wasn't over. There was someone else pulling the strings, and Nathaniel was about to find out who. The suite was quiet when Nathaniel returned. Dawn was just beginning to stretch across the city, casting a pale gold hue through the windows. He opened the door slowly, not wanting to wake Hope, but found both her and Emily sitting on the couch, wide-eyed and waiting. Hope jumped up the moment she saw him. "Daddy!" she cried, running into his arms. The word struck him in the chest, simple, direct, and yet it shattered something in him and stitched it back together in the same moment. He dropped to one knee, wrapping his arms around her tightly. "I told you I'd come back," he whispered. Emily approached slowly, eyes scanning him for injury. "You're okay?" He nodded, rising. "It's over. Barrett's in custody. The files are safe. Leo's safe." Relief flooded her face, but her voice remained cautious. "And the price secret?" "I know everything now," Nathaniel said, pulling the document from his coat pocket and placing it gently on the table. Emily picked it up, running her fingers over the name, Nathaniel James Price. Hope looked up at them both. "Is that who you really are?" Nathaniel crouched again to her level. "It's a name I was born with, but it's not who I became. Everything I am, what I built, what I believe in, came from surviving without that name." She nodded slowly, thoughtful. "So you're still you?" He smiled, brushing a curl from her face. "More than ever." Marcus entered the room moments later, his expression unreadable. "You need to see this," he said, holding out a tablet. Nathaniel took it, frowning. On the screen was a live news report. Reports confirmed the arrest of Vincent Barrett, believed to be involved in an underground network tied to the late Callum Price. But the biggest twist? Sources allege that billionaire Nathaniel Crown may in fact be the missing heir to the Price fortune, Nathaniel James Price. Emily inhaled sharply. How did they know? Marcus shook his head. Leaks. Someone wants this public. Hope looked between them. Is that bad? Nathaniel stood. It's dangerous. There are people who still fear what the Price name represents, and others who want to use it. Emily's voice trembled. What now? Nathaniel turned toward the window, the skyline brightening with the coming sun. Now, we take control. We go public, but on our terms. We tell the truth. About the fire, the lies, the forgeries, all of it. Marcus nodded. I can arrange a press conference, but you'll need protection. More than just me. I'll handle it, Nathaniel said. He turned back to Emily. There's one more thing. He walked to his coat and pulled out a small box. Emily's eyes widened. What's that? He opened it to reveal the tree pendant necklace, the twin to the one Hope wore. This was supposed to be yours, he said softly. I bought it the day before the fire, and I never got the chance to give it to you. Emily's hand covered her mouth as tears welled. He stepped forward, placing it gently in her palm. I don't want to lose this family again, he said. Not to lies. Not to fear, not to a name I didn't choose. Emily looked at him, emotion flooding her voice. You won't. But before the moment could settle, the sweet phone rang. Nathaniel picked it up, frowning. Mr. Crown, the front desk said. There's someone here asking to see you. Says her name is Sylvia. Nathaniel froze. Hope tilted her head. Who's Sylvia? He looked at Emily, his voice shaking. My mother. The elevator ride down felt endless. Nathaniel stood between Emily and Marcus, his hands clenched into fists, heart pounding against his ribs like a war drum. The name had hit him like a thunderclap, Sylvia. A ghost he had long believed was ashes and memory. But now somehow, she stood downstairs asking for him. He tried to prepare himself, but how do you meet the mother you thought was lost forever? The elevator chimed, and the doors opened to the lobby. And there she was. Standing by the concierge desk in a long dark coat, her grey-streaked hair pinned into a low twist. Her posture was proud, but her eyes, those familiar eyes, held the weariness of decades lost. As soon as Nathaniel stepped into view, she turned. For a second, they simply stared at each other. Neither moved, neither breathed. Then her lips parted. Nathaniel, she whispered. His legs carried him forward before he realized it, stopping just feet from her. It's really you." Sylvia reached out, her hand trembling as it brushed his face. "They told me you died in that fire. I searched for years. No one would tell me anything. And when I finally found someone who remembered your name, I followed the story until it led here." Tears welled in Nathaniel's eyes. "I didn't remember you. Not clearly. Just flashes. A song. A scent. Your voice in the dark." She smiled through her tears. "I never stopped singing that lullaby, even after they said it was hopeless." He grabbed her hand and pressed it to his cheek, his voice breaking. "I thought I was alone." "You never were," she said. "You were just hidden." Behind them, Emily wiped her eyes. Marcus looked away respectfully. And then, from behind the marble column near the elevator, a small figure stepped forward. Hope. She had followed them down, silent and curious. Sylvia turned slowly, seeing the child for the first time. Nathaniel extended a hand. This is Hope." Hope looked up at him uncertain. "She's really your mom?" He nodded. "She's your grandmother." Sylvia dropped to one knee, eyes filling. "Hope," she whispered. "Your name suits you so well." The little girl walked slowly into her arms, and Sylvia embraced her as if trying to hold on to all the years she'd lost. Emily stepped forward, emotion choking her voice. "Mrs. Price." "Sylvia," the older woman said, rising to her feet. "Please, call me Sylvia." Emily nodded. "Sylvia, there's something you need to know. About your husband. About what Dennis did to your son and granddaughter." Sylvia's face darkened. "I know enough. I was kept in the dark for years, but once Callum was arrested, I started pulling at every thread I could. By the time I discovered what Dennis had done, it was too late." Nathaniel's eyes narrowed. "You knew about the trust, the inheritance?" "I created it," Sylvia said. "Before Callum's arrest, I hid funds in Hope's name. In your name. I thought if anything happened, it would keep you safe." Emily and Nathaniel exchanged a stunned glance. Hope clutched Sylvia's hand. "So, I was part of your plan all along?" Sylvia smiled gently. "You were always the future." But as the reunited family stood there, a man stepped into the lobby from outside, tall, calm, wearing a grey suit. He watched them for a moment, then made a call. "They've connected," he said into the phone. "Initiate the second phase." He turned and disappeared into the crowd. The Price legacy was no longer hidden, and now it was being hunted. Back upstairs, the suite pulsed with a quiet tension. Hope sat curled on the couch between Sylvia and Emily, sipping cocoa with both hands, her eyes darting between the two women, as if trying to piece together a puzzle that had suddenly gained far too many pieces. Nathaniel stood at the window, arms crossed, watching the city begin to stir below. The streets looked normal, but nothing was normal anymore. He turned to Sylvia. "Who was that man outside the court system, the one who sealed my records after the fire?" Sylvia sighed, setting her cup down. "A judge named Eldridge. Callum paid him off years before. After the fire, I begged him to hide you. Callum's enemies would have come for you. And you thought I'd be safer as an orphan. I thought you'd have a chance to live free," she said, pain rippling through her voice. "Callum was a dangerous man, ruthless. I didn't want that for you." Nathaniel paced. "Well, I lived, but not free. Every move I made, Dennis tracked. Every dollar I earned, someone watched." Sylvia nodded. "I know. And now they're coming back into the light. Callum's old circle, the ones who didn't go down with him, they've waited for this." Emily leaned forward. "Waited for what?" Sylvia's eyes flicked to Hope. "For her. The granddaughter of Callum Price. A key to fortunes they couldn't access. A symbol of continuity, and maybe a weapon." Nathaniel stiffened. "Not my daughter." Sylvia's voice hardened. "Then protect her, not just from guns and spies, but from legacy. Callum's legacy." Marcus entered then, holding a tablet. "We've got a name. The man who tailed you in the hotel? Victor Serov, former KGB, now freelance. paid through a Cayman shell account linked to a Price subsidiary that shouldn't even exist. Nathaniel took the tablet, scanning the details. So the old network's not dead, it's sleeping. And now waking up, Marcus added. They were quiet for years because there was no air. You changed that. And Hope? She's the future. That makes her powerful or dangerous, depending on who's holding the strings. Emily stood. Then we run. Nathaniel shook his head. No more running. We've been reacting since the beginning. Now we lead. Sylvia nodded. There's one place that's still ours, untouched. It's where I hid the first set of documents before the fire, a villa in the south of France under an alias. Callum never found it. Nathaniel met her eyes. Is it safe? As safe as we'll ever be, she replied. He turned to Marcus. Can you get us out without being seen? Marcus smirked. Already ahead of you. Private jet. 3 aliases. Wheels up at midnight. Hope looked up. Are we leaving forever? Nathaniel knelt beside her. No. Just long enough to finish what started before you were born. To make sure you get to live your life, not run from it. Hope nodded solemnly. Then I'm ready. Sylvia smiled. She's a Price. Brave like her father, but wiser. Emily took Hope's hand. And nothing like the man who started this bloodline. But as the family packed and prepared to flee the city once more, they didn't notice the small drone hovering across the street, recording every word, transmitting every plan. Hand far away, a screen lit up in a dark room, a voice murmuring, "They're going to France, let the next game begin." Night fell swiftly, draping the city in shadows and anticipation. The family moved in silence through a secured underground garage where Marcus's contact waited beside a sleek black SUV. Emily held Hope's hand tightly. Sylvia clutched a single satchel with old documents and what little remained of her past. Nathaniel surveyed the alley from beneath the brim of a cap, eyes cold, mind sharp. Marcus handed Nathaniel a passport. New names. You're now Daniel and Emma Barlow. Hope is Lily. Sylvia kept her alias, Catherine Delacroix. Jets on standby. Wheels up at 11:57 p.m. Nathaniel nodded. And the decoys? Already in motion. 2 more families heading to separate airports in similar SUVs. Anyone tracking us will have to guess. Emily exhaled. And what about the press? We planted a story, Marcus said. Nathaniel crowns on retreat in Switzerland. If they buy it, we gain 3 days. Nathaniel looked toward the garage door. That's all I need. As the SUV moved through the city, every turn felt like a heartbeat skipped. But no tails followed. No strange vans lingered. Still, Nathaniel never unclenched his fists. At the private airstrip, the jet gleamed under floodlights, its engines humming softly. The pilot gave a discreet nod as the family approached. Nathaniel paused at the steps, scanning the perimeter once more. Then he turned to Marcus. If something happens to me... It won't, Marcus said firmly. But if it does, I'll make sure she grows up with the truth. All of it. Nathaniel nodded. You're the only one I trust with that. Then he climbed aboard. Inside, the jet was warm and quiet. Hope pressed her face to the window, wide-eyed at the runway lights. Emily and Sylvia buckled in across from each other, their hands clasped silently. Nathaniel sat alone for a moment, staring at the envelope of files retrieved from Ellison. The Price empire wasn't just money. It was war chests, safe houses, blackmail networks, names of people whose secrets could bring down nations. He tucked it away. Not tonight. As the engines roared and the plane lifted into the sky, Emily leaned across the aisle. Do you believe her? Your mother? He didn't answer right away. Then, I believe she did what she thought was right. Sylvia turned her gaze from the window. I did what I had to do, but I won't lie to Hope. Not like everyone else did. Hope turned, hearing her name. What won't you lie about? Nathaniel looked at his daughter. That you're the last Price, and that you don't owe anyone your future, only your truth. She smiled sleepily. That's enough. She drifted off soon after, head resting on Emily's lap. But miles below, in a smoky office lined with monitors, the man in the grey suit watched their flight blink across the screen. He turned to a figure cloaked in shadow. "The heir has fled." A deep voice replied, "Let them run." France was where it all began. The grey-suited man frowned. "You think he'll find the safe house?" "No," the voice said. "He'll find the graveyard." Outside the jet window, the clouds thickened. And somewhere in the darkness ahead, answers waited, buried in the land that birthed the Price legacy and nearly destroyed it. The jet touched down just after sunrise, the golden light spilling across the tarmac of a secluded airstrip in the south of France. The world here felt older, slower, winding roads carved between stone walls and lavender fields, villas draped in ivy, air rich with the scent of earth and forgotten things. Nathaniel watched it all with a quiet unease. Beauty often concealed history, and the Price family had written theirs in blood. A car waited at the edge of the runway, a vintage Citroën with diplomatic plates. The driver, an older man in a crisp grey suit, gave a polite nod as they approached. "Madame Delacroix," he said to Sylvia in perfect French. "Welcome home." Hope giggled. "You have a driver here?" Sylvia smiled, but her eyes were distant. "I have ghosts here, darling. He just knows their names." They drove for nearly an hour, climbing into the hills above the sea. Finally, the villa came into view. Stone walls wrapped in bougainvillea, green shutters cracked slightly open as if the house had been waiting to breathe again. The car rolled to a stop at the gravel path. Silence settled around them like fog. Nathaniel stepped out first, scanning the perimeter. "It's beautiful." Sylvia exited slowly, her hand resting on the old iron gate. "It was our safe house. Callum and I stayed here during the worst months of the war between syndicates, but it was never a home." Emily carried Hope up the path, the child wide-eyed at the old-world charm, wrought iron lanterns, a courtyard fountain, and a crooked olive tree whose roots broke through the stone. Inside, dust clung to every surface, but the furniture remained, preserved like a stage frozen mid-scene. Sylvia moved through the rooms with slow reverence, finally stopping before a large armoire in the study. She pulled open a hidden compartment behind it, revealing a small chest. She handed it to Nathaniel. He opened it to find a stack of ledgers, old passports, and a weathered photo. A young Sylvia, holding a baby in front of this very villa. Behind her, partially obscured, stood a tall man with hauntingly familiar eyes. "That's Callum?" Nathaniel asked. Sylvia nodded, eyes unreadable. "At his most human." Emily examined one of the passports. "These names, they're all connected to shell companies still active." Nathaniel scanned the ledgers. "This isn't just evidence, it's a map, a guide to what Callum built and who helped him." Sylvia placed a hand on his shoulder. "If you follow it, you'll expose every person who stood with him and everyone who still wants to control what he left behind." Nathaniel's eyes met hers. "Including whoever's chasing us now." A sound outside stopped them all. Footsteps, gravel shifting. Nathaniel moved to the window. A figure in a black coat stood at the gate. He turned slowly, removed his sunglasses. It was Jonathan Ellison. Alone. Nathaniel opened the door but didn't step out. Ellison raised his hands. "I didn't come to fight. I came to warn you." Sylvia's voice was cold behind Nathaniel. "You've done enough warning." Ellison looked toward the house. "I never wanted this to go this far, but someone has reactivated the old network, and they're not after money." Nathaniel narrowed his eyes. "Then what do they want?" Ellison stepped forward, gaze steady. "They want Hope, not to kill her, to crown her." The silence that followed was suffocating. Emily's voice broke it. "Crown her as what?" Ellison's voice was grim. "As the head of the Price dynasty." Nathaniel felt something snap inside. They're building something, using her name, her blood. And as the villa stood still in the rising sun, the legacy Nathaniel had spent his life escaping now stood at his daughter's feet. Hope stepped out behind them. She looked at Ellison, calm and clear, and asked one question: "Do I get to choose?"